Good evening and welcome to the Appointment Subcommittee. Chairman Brian, Ways and Means Subcommittee. Chairman Brian Arrigo is a little bit delayed, so we're going to start this meeting off with the first item on the agenda. And the item is 13-169, Establishment of a Revolving Fund for Employee Training and Public Relations. We have with us George Zanzoni, who Director of Finance, who will tell us and give us an insight as to what this is all about.
Well, thank you very much. The reason that this request for being a revolving fund, we don't have any account in the city that allows for the training of employees. There's a lot of a number of times that these training classes come up that would improve definitely improve the way the employee does their work, and we just don't have the money to send them. And you talk to other cities and towns, and well, we send them to this and that and so on and so forth, and it does work. So what we're looking for, that's one of the main reasons why we want this revolving account. And the other one is that if, say, for example, there's some public relations, we did this year during the last 2 years, I have a disc on it. In fact, it's on the website. We did the Terry Bradshaw piece, which is played throughout the country on cable, and which is to advertise the city of Revere and the development opportunities in the city of Revere. And that's continuously run throughout the country on cable TV. So these are the things that this account will be used for. And further is that there was no account that, since the mayor doesn't take a car or doesn't use the city car and has to pay for mileage, there's no way to reimburse him for the mileage when he goes to a city function. So we would like to have this an all-inclusive type of revolving fund, but the main reason really for it is the training of the employees and so that they can improve the level of skills and the level of service they give to the citizens of this community.
George, what dollar amount are you requesting to go into this fund if established?
It's about $30,000.
$30,000? And basically the greater portion of the $30,000 will be used for employee training?
Employee training, that's correct.
All right. I know in the past, as a mayor for 8 years, former Mayor Colella and former Mayor Imbrussino, we never had expenses.
Right.
We felt we were paid enough being mayor.
Right.
Okay. So I don't know. I'm not sure if that's a good thing at this point in time. The mayorship, when I was mayor, was $80,000. It has since gone up. The month I left mayor, they brought in the educational incentive, which without question I was against, because everyone has a job that was working, was qualified, and now we're asking for more compensation. I don't know. Any idea how much of the 30,000 will be allocated for training? Any ballpark figure?
Training, well, the training isn't for somebody who came on the job and for the original job they came on for. What's happening, things are evolving so quickly, especially the computer systems are evolving so quickly, we have to keep them updated with training. So the majority of that amount of money would actually be for training of employees. And then there are different classes that they can take, not only from the computer company, but different classes that they can take in order to be able to serve the public better, and also seminars they can go to that are run by various colleges in the area, so that, again, we can keep up to date on what's happening in certain areas and also what we'll be looking at in the future, so that we also can get some strategic planning in here at the same time.
No, I agree, but I just want to make sure we're not paying for people to go to college to...
not to get a degree or anything, no.
That's what I want. No degrees at all.
No.
Just on-the-job training.
Just on-the-job training, and if there's a seminar that's very pertinent to their job that will give them the ability to perform their job better, yes, but there'll be no credited courses, okay? There's no credit courses.
Thank you,
Courses.
thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Has. Councilor Guanasso.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. George, in the private sector, and being in budgeting and
Right.
financial Mass General, when we look for something like this, we would put line items as to what meetings and conferences they would be going to.
Okay.
And we would put a dollar amount to each one and who the attendees might be.
Right.
So that when we did the oversight and review, well, we made it a professional judgment based on what we saw before us,
Right.
rather than just saying establishing a fund for training and put $30,000 into the kickers.
Okay.
It's a lot of money not to be earmarked for certain conferences and certain types of training that would be offered to our employees. So that would help me quite a bit in this particular fashion. Now, if you have a conference or something that's coming up, training within the next month or so,
Right.
ask for that. But I think, whereas this is just being newly established, I would like to see some sort of a budget breakdown as to what we have in mind for this 30,000.
That can be difficult because, as you know, the seminars come up, as they come up, there's different seminars that you can attend. We don't have a schedule of exactly when those seminars are and which ones they are. We've seen ones in the past that have been pertinent, but the new ones in the future, there's no way for us to tell. However, before an employee would be able to attend, it has to have approval. We have actually set up, especially for the A, B, and A and B unions, that if you want to attend a class on X, Y, and Z, say, okay, you have to fill out a form, and you have to submit it to your department head, if not the department head. If you are a department head, to the mayor. If you're a financial department head, you have to send it to me. And it has to get approval before they go.
That's what I was going to ask. Who's the determining factor in the approval process?
Well, the determinant factor in the approval process, it's finally the mayor, but it first has to be the department head, and then, and if it is the department head, if they have a supervisor like the financial department head to do, it's me, and then it's the mayor. So that's but we have that as a part of an agreement in the union, in that if it's something that is not pertinent to their position, they get a no. I mean, it just doesn't happen. But if something very important to the decision made, they need the signatures on there before they attend, or they will not get reimbursed.
Thank you.
And that's how we do it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Guanasso. Councilor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My first question, George, would be, where is this money coming from? Is this coming out of the general fund and appropriation?
No, it's actually coming from the receipts and the, it's in the communication. It's the, could I just see the, right. It's the Metro PCS Wireless, the payments, Metro PCS Wireless that they're making the payments in the city.
Okay, let me just state my feelings on that. I think just to throw $30,000 in there to be used at anyone's discretion, including the mayor. I don't think that's, in my opinion, good budgeting. I worked in the governor's office years ago, and I handled that account for that office. And it was entitled Traveling and Entertaining While in and Around the City of Boston, and that was specifically for the governor's use. And I can assure you, it was not a great amount. I think way back then it was like $15,000, and that could be used. The wording was traveling while in and around the city of Boston, so that money could be used taking a trip to Springfield or Northampton or Cape Cod. But I think if we're going to put money into an account, a revolving account, I think it should be a specific amount for the mayor's vehicle. Whatever the mayor feels and the council feels should be reimbursement to him, whether it's $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, whatever the amount may be. An amount certainly adequate enough to cover his travels around the city, going into Boston and things like that for wear and tear on his car. I think that's acceptable, wear and tear on your vehicle, gasoline, insurance. But again, I don't think it should just be left out there as a blank amount for this mayor or any mayor in the future.
Well, that's not what we're asking, and I'll tell you why. Because what we all have to go under on units AB and the non-union department heads, we have a policy that the only reimbursement anybody can get is either for actual tolls and actual mileage. So if it, and again, since the mayor doesn't take the city advantage of the city car that he was offered, and he at times he has to go into Boston or various places and pay tolls. So he only gets paid for actual tolls, and he gets paid for actual mileage. So there's not, and it has to be filled out that way, and it's no exception to that. So there's not a you put in the account, and unless the travel is done, and he has put on the sheet where he went, he has to submit receipts for the toll, and if there's parking, he has to submit receipts for that. So it's the same process that and same travel policy that the both the department heads and the staff, according to the union agreement. So if it's not actual, there's no account. We're not saying give the mayor $4,000. We're not saying this. We're give him $4,000. That's his travel. That's not what we're saying. It's actual miles and actual. He has to submit receipts. He has to submit where he went on the receipt. He has the date. I mean, it's a big schedule that we all, and it has to be signed off on by myself and the city auditor. So, and it has to follow the guidelines according to the travel policy.
Are you recommending, or is the mayor recommending a cap on that?
A cap on the travel?
Yeah.
No. Well, see, here's the thing. There would be a cap on it if it was going to be a general amount. But if he is traveling say if he does 10 meetings in a month, and say they're all in Boston, and then they have parking, and then they have tolls, it's the actual usage of the money. It's not just a lump sum goes to the mayor automatically. So if he has 20 meetings the next month, well, it's the 20 meetings, but the actual usage and the actual mileage is being submitted. And, let me tell you, there have been times that we actually check, there's times that we've actually checked and the mileage was on, we go by what the, we Google it and say, okay, this is the amount of mileage and this is how much you're going to pay, and that's it. And we check that. We don't say, okay, it's 30 miles from here to Boston and back. Well, something, where did you go in Boston? And this is for everybody. This is for everybody. And if we Google it and say it's 20 miles, all they get is 20 miles. So that's from there to Boston, for their point in Boston and back. So we check that too. And again, they have to have the receipts. It's all audited by the city auditor, and then it's audited by the outside auditors. So there's no way that we can just give him, and that's not what we're recommending, giving him a carte blanche here. We're not. We're just asking that for the actual expenditures used and the actual mileage used, the actual tolls that are paid, the actual parking that is paid, that's what he will be reimbursed for, but nothing more.
What about out-of-state travel?
Like where?
Well, like anywhere, like going to Washington, D.C.
Actually, he's gone to places like that, and he hasn't taken any reimbursement for those. But this is for around the town, around the state travel.
Yeah, I certainly don't have any problem reimbursing the mayor for reasonable expenses.
Right.
But I certainly would want to, see a situation where it costs us more to reimburse someone than it did to purchase a car for them or lease a car for them.
No, it doesn't go up that high. I understand what you're saying, but it doesn't go up that high because then you're paying the insurance, the gas, everything else on top of it. It doesn't go that high. It's just that it's actual usage of what you use, what you're using.
Yeah.
So if you don't do it, you're not getting it, and that's the same for, as I said, department heads, and the same for all city employees. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Powers. Councilor Janino.
Thank you. I have several issues with the way this is set up. My first concern is that I think in a perfect world, in a perfect economy, I think this would be a great thing, and everyone would love to have money for training and for all these things. But the bottom line is they're not essential right now, and I think in an economy and a budget where we're cutting things so close, that there are other ways to handle issues like this that arise that are urgent. In past budgets that I've worked with, I've seen that these trainings would be proposed for in the department's budget. So say that someone in inspectional services wanted to go to a conference, right? That would be budgeted for in that year's budget, and there would be a line item in that department's budget for a conference, and it would be put in as a part of the budget. I don't see a need for a separate account for it, because if these trainings are coming up, they should be planned for well in advance in a part of each department's budget, because not every department's going to utilize it, and it's not on a kind of need basis, it's more of a want basis. So if it's put in as a line item like that, it would make a little more sense. And also, I mean, expenses are expenses. So if the expenses like that are in maybe a separate account, it's just there's a lot in one thing. If you're looking at tolls, you're looking at mileage, you're looking at trainings. It's just a very vague account, and I think that there are other ways that it could be broken down that I would feel more comfortable with, but I just feel like the time's not right now, especially where we just looked at such a tight budget and we did so much work trimming it. Maybe in a few years. Thanks.
Well, part of the problem is, in normal services, I would say, okay, but that was correct. It's different points of view. But seeing, we don't have the ability to see what they're offering in courses in the future. We get these seminars, and it says, you get a seminar from the computer company a month before the course, and they'll say to you, okay, we're going to train on X, Y, and Z. And there's no way we can put that into a budget. We can't foresee these amounts. And at the same time, in order for the employee, if the computer company has made a change to the software, we don't have the availability to actually go in and look at that software and say, okay, we know how to use it now, because it's just that complicated. So that's basically the type of training that's going. The training that we're looking for is to make certain that, one, the employee will be able to give the employee the opportunity and the education to do the job correctly, not when they're hired, but as the software changes, okay? We get, in different computer systems, we get maybe 3 or 4 upgrades a year. They tell you, well, you can use it like this, but then they give you pretty much the minimum way to work it, and the way to work is, and if you wanted to go to the maximum usage of some of those, maximum usage of the changes in the software, then at that point, we'll be able to, the city will be able to have their employees fully educated on that. There are certain policy conferences that people will do, and this isn't just for the mayor's office. Let me just make this clear. I don't think I have. My fault. Is that this is for all City Hall employees. This isn't just for the mayor's office. This is for all City Hall employees. And we felt it would be better to be centralized, because that way we can control it. And because once you give a department head his or her budget, if he's legally spending the money, you can't stop him under the law from spending the money that way. So that's why, in order to get more control, we centralize it and put it in one budget, so that, and under the mayor's office, so that we will be able to control it much better than if we had it in X's budget or Y's budget or whatever. And that's the reason we did it the way we do.
Thank you, George. Councilor Haas.
I just have one question, Mr. President. George, as far as people getting miles, checks, travel checks per month, are they issued a 1099?
Well, it's a total reimbursement. And first of all, you don't get a 1099 unless you go over a certain amount.
Yeah.
And very few people reach that amount. So in that case, they wouldn't. But where it's a reimbursement, and we have proof of reimbursement, then we don't give them a 1099. It's
So
not required.
basically,
It's a true reimbursement
a
policy.
true based on mileage.
Right.
And you have records up in your office to substantiate that?
We have records in the auditor's office for people who have traveled. There's a form that we fill out and it says exactly what mileage, where they went, and then that also gets audited by the outside auditors at the end of the year.
So the difference between the city council and them, where we all get 1099s.
Right.
See, that was an issue with some of the councils
Right.
in the past.
Right. But what we are working on is a plan so that the city councils can submit reimbursements, and we're doing that now, and we had talked about that, and we're doing that now, but because things have been so mumble-jumbled, especially now that, well, we got one big item over with, but we'll still be looking at so that the councils can be able to submit the expenses that they have, so they don't get they only get a 1099 for the portion of the monies that they
It's
didn't
over.
use an actual reimbursement.
Exactly.
So that's all they're going to get it for. But, you know, it should have been that they were able to submit reimbursements, and that's tracked. I think the vehicle we want to set it up at is that first we're going to set a policy. We'll go with you with the policy and also our outside auditors, and then you'll be submitting your information to the city auditor. And then we review it, and then at the end of the year, we'll see who, you know, if you get $2,000 and say you use $190 worth of, excuse me, $1,900 worth of travel expenses, well, I don't think a 1099 gets issued unless it's over 600. So it's the $100 you wouldn't get a 1099 for.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilor Haz. George, you answered a couple of my questions. I was going to ask about who exactly would be using this money, and it sounds like it would be available to everybody.
Everybody in the city.
In the city. Because I know, to Councilor Janino's point about having money in the budget,
Right.
I know the mayor's office does have a budget line item that is for conferences.
Right.
It was actually increased this year.
Right.
One question I had about the line for economic development expenses. I don't know if you had already talked about it, but
Right.
what would something like that be?
Well, say, for example, we had this, I don't know if you've seen it. It was done by Terry Bradshaw's Hidden Gems in America, I believe is the name of the program. And what it is, it's they came in and they did it's a 5-minute piece for his show, which shows across the country on cable stations. And what we did is we did a development piece. We first showed them Revere, showed them the highlights of the city of Revere. And then, in fact, people, if they want to see it, it's online. There's a link to it at the www.revere.org website. And what happens is that we then show them also the possibilities of, we build up the city. We tell them about our education system. We tell them about, what we feel about public safety and how we look at development in the city, again, the schools. And they look at it and see, it's a way to sell the city. Entice people who are thinking of moving, say, to the Northeast, come to the city of Revere and live, and or come to the city of Revere and develop. And, we tell them our development plans, and it's in that 5-minute piece, which was professionally done. That's something like that would be considered not only as an economic development, but it's also, selling the city to make it a place where people will see the benefits that are actually happening in the city and all the work that's being done by everybody.
So what would the money be spent on exactly? Like what?
Well, it would be on that type of thing, item. It'd be if employees need training, more training than what they have, because of the fact that, again, software packages have changed that we have here. We have 2 or 3 major software packages, and we get upgrades during the year. In order, what happens is that historically what's happened is that a person would receive a notification that the software has changed. They would arrange for them to give us maybe a WebEx on how it's changed, but they do that with numerous computers at one time. And then you're looking at your software and saying, well, really, what's the full capability of the software now that they've made the change? And some of the software changes recently that have been done have been very high-end, but looking at that, we'd be able to send that employee or the employees that be using it to make certain they're able to use because don't forget, it's municipal software. You're not going to get very many people out there who are familiar with municipal software packages, but because it's specific to municipalities. And they'll be able to then, after they have their training, they'll be able to then utilize the software to at least 90% of its capacity. So rather than running it at 20% of the capacity, we're looking at using it at 90%. And if the person is someone who is very capable, send it more and get it to 100%. And then maybe when we can make suggestions to the company at that point saying, okay, we're doing this, but we need to do this, which is a little higher, and then be allowed to do that and be able to make a change showing that we have full knowledge of the software. But that only happens when you have full knowledge of the software.
And I know you said that this is going to be basically a reimbursement. There's nothing about any type of reporting, but would it be possible to maybe get a monthly update on, if we're going to do this, that the amount of money that's being spent out of the fund, and so we know exactly what's going into the fund and then what's coming out, and
That's definitely, we can do that.
We could get a report.
I've actually asked the city auditor, I requested of the city auditor that I'm waiting for the city auditor to close the year-end books and get ready for the outside auditors. But on a monthly basis, I've requested that there be a receipts and expenditures statement available. I think it's most helpful to the administration and be most helpful to the city council. So that we're standing up here talking about, it's sort of the same idea that we did with the budget. You had in front of you expenditures and as current expenditures as we could give you, but you're able to look at them and say, okay, here's a trend, here's what's happened to be spent, and you can look at these things and say, okay, and it's a helpful tool for both parties. So that's something that's going to be coming up. And we're also starting to, not to get off the subject, but we are also starting to look at our budget process again this year, and we're going to schedule the budget so that we don't have the late budget we had last year. However, there may be a problem, believe it or not, if we get the casino money, because that comes in April, and we won't know that till April, but we've done as much budgeting as we could to that point, and that may cause a holdup, but that's what we're looking at.
Okay. So, this is not new money, and I think that if we can see reports on it and there's some transparency to how this money is being spent, I don't have a problem with this fund. I do think that it's important, though, that we have detailed information about how this money is being spent, and we know either on a monthly or a quarterly basis that we get an update, and if there are things that we don't or that we have questions about, we can refer to you to ask those questions. But Councilor Giannino.
Thank you. Do you think that's something we should maybe keep in committee until we see a further breakdown of how this is going to work out, or is it something you guys feel comfortable voting on tonight?
Well, that would be up to the members of the committee. I am okay with it moving forward, only with the
Sorry.
with only if the reporting is given to us and we know either by month or by quarter how this money is being spent and how much money is coming in. Because my guess is Metro PCS probably pays us monthly, or they may pay a lump sum at the beginning of the year. I'm not really sure, but if we know what's going into the fund, what's coming out each month, and we have a detailed breakdown that we could see by either department or by expense type, and if we have questions about it, we can bring it back up in committee. Right now I don't have too much of an issue with this. Councilor Hess.
So let's do it quarterly, as long as there is a breakdown. That's the key factor. I think that's what Jessica's referring to in yourself. So I would move that we pass it and receive reports quarterly.
Okay. Councilor Gino, does that sound reasonable?
To be completely honest with you, it's just not something that I feel is necessary right now. So I maybe have a biased opinion on this. I just feel like we made so many cuts and did so many things. I'm not comfortable in voting on something so soon after we pass the budget. And this is no offense to anyone or anything. It's just, I don't know, timing. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, why don't we make a
Council
compromise?
Guanasso.
Why don't we make a compromise? We're going to do the new budgets in May. Why don't we put at least 10,000 into this revolving fund right now, and then go from there?
I like that.
George, is that something that
That'll get the program working.
We, instead of putting all, this request is that all of the funds that the city receives from Metro PCS. Has the city already received money from Metro PCS for fiscal year 14?
We get paid on a monthly basis. We have received some. I can't tell you how much we've received at this point, but we have received some, and I just don't know what it is at this point, to be honest with you.
Well, I would say that we amend the amount from all to
10,000.
10,000. Is that
Mr. Chairman,
Council Powers?
I'd even be willing to say 15,000 because we're only 3 months into not even 3 months into our fiscal year, and we've got over 9 months left. And I think 15,000 would be reasonable, and as long as we are getting reports back on a quarterly basis, I don't find any problem with that. And I'd be willing to support that.
15.
Okay, so 15,000 and regular reporting, quarterly reports. So all in favor, all opposed? So.
What's the next one?
Our next item is number 13-177, and this is an ordinance, a proposed ordinance amending Schedule A2A of the revised ordinances of the City of Revere. This was a motion that was presented by Councilor Novoselsky a couple of weeks ago, and my understanding of it is that the current schedule of salaries in the ordinance, in our city ordinances, has the city clerk and the parking clerk on the same line.
Right.
And this would be a move to break those two out.
Right.
Is that correct?
Right.
Okay. And is that's my understanding. I don't know, is there any fiscal impact? Is there any?
Not to those two positions.
This is just splitting out
Right, splitting out
the positions and matching it to the way that we budget, really, because
Matches the way we budget.
Yeah, the way we budget is that we have the city clerk as a full-time
Right.
position and the parking clerk
Part-time.
as a part-time.
Right.
I'm going to open it up to councilors if they have any questions. Councilor Guanasso.
George, you have any problem with that? Is that agreeable
No,
to
there's
you?
no problem with that. It actually clarifies.
It actually
exactly,
works
yes.
better for the-
It's
for the
city and budgeting
accounting.
process, right.
Yeah, I don't think this is much to think about. It makes sense. Thank you.
Any other councilors have any comments? All right. So on the motion, we'll to move favorably on this item, 13-177. All in favor, all opposed? Next item is number 13-210, memorandum of agreement with Unit C. This is the call takers, I believe, a one-year contract for call takers.
Call takers and dispatchers.
Okay,
Right.
and dispatch,
Police and
and
fire.
2%
Right,
for over 1 year.
over 1 year.
Okay.
The reason that we only went 1 year is because we're expecting the opening of the regional emergency call center, and at that point, it's going to be a different job altogether. So the city has to address that with the town of Winthrop, address exactly how that's going to work. I mean, not how it's going to work, but how it's going to be budgeted for. So that's something, so rather than just leave them without a contract, the reopener is in the contract that once the rec center becomes up and running, then at that point, they can renegotiate for further, whatever wages or benefits they're looking for, okay?
And
Because everybody will be coming, right now, I don't believe there's any civilian call takers in Winthrop, but it's going to be a joint Revere-Winthrop combined rec center for the rec center standing, not for the Parks and Recreation, it's for the regional emergency call center. So that's what will be happening with that money. That's what we need.
thanks, George. Any Councilor Haas?
Just one quick question, George. I understand they hired an individual, and the individual, since retired, is going to control this. Is that true?
Excuse me, they hired an individual for the,
Call
oversee-
takers be responsive to all of the call takers?
Right, right.
Okay.
Okay.
Did that individual accept the job, then turn it down?
Then turned it down?
Yeah.
No.
No.
Okay, you're talking the man, the person that's going to oversee this.
Exactly.
Okay. No. What happened is, I believe there's ongoing negotiations with that person.
Okay.
And he hasn't turned it down. As far as I know, I spoke to both the fire chief and the police chief about this maybe in the last couple of days. So, but no, that didn't happen.
All right, I'm leaving.
You got to vote on that.
Councilor Guanasso.
Again, Judge, do you have any problem with this?
No, I don't. This was negotiated with them.
This is a
This-
negotiated agreement.
And it goes according to what other AB units got.
And it's the conditions that we have previously.
previously,
I
right.
don't
Just
see
an
any problem with that.
Thank you, Councilor Guanasso. Councilor Janino.
This is something I'm absolutely for. I think it's a different improvement that we need for our call systems. My only concern is that these positions would go to Revere and Winthrop residents over any outside residents, because I've also heard that there were some other out-of-state applicants and such. So I just want to make sure that Revere and Winthrop residents are prioritized in establishing this, and that's my only concern. But I think it's a great thing that we need to set up, definitely for the safety of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Janino. Maybe we can get 10% of them to be.
10% to be what? I think.
George, my only question about this is, how much is it going to cost for over the year? How much are we talking?
Over the year, it's 2% in the increase, and it's short money because they don't get much money now anyway, because it's mostly part-time.
Yeah.
And, they increased maybe, guesstimate like 13,000. It's short money.
Yeah, no, I figured it was short money. I wasn't sure exactly what the
Like
dollar figure was,
13,000,
and I know
Yeah, because
this
they
is
pay on a
not,
part-time basis.
and there's a $200 clothing allowance per year. It's not a lot of money, and
Yeah.
it's in line with the 2% that every other bargaining
Every
unit has
bargaining
gotten.
union got. There's nothing special about this one.
So, okay, so I'm going to move that we report this out favorably to the council. All in favor, all opposed? So moved.
And Mr. President,
Councilor Hess.
on the last issue, Moody's, I think what we should do is have George up before the whole council in its entirety to address the bond issues, how we actually fare with the rating agencies. Instead of having to do it now, and I'm sure one of the councilors will ask him to come up and explain what he's going to explain this evening.
I would be open to that. I think that this I've read the Moody's report and it's pretty good. And if George is okay with that, I think
Fine with that. Fine with
the
me.
full it is worth the full council's attention, and it's a good report on the financial stability of the city. So I would be in favor of that, and I think we could just move to that it be brought up at the next council meeting.
On the next committee of the whole meeting.
Next committee of the whole. Okay. Councilor Powers.
I don't mean to digress from, the agenda, but I heard yourself mention, George, the money from the casino.
Right.
A little while ago. And my understanding is, according to the agreement, if I've read it right, we're going to be, once that, if it's awarded to Suffolk, and we all hope it is,
Right.
that there'll be a $4 million payment to the city of Revere in August of 14 or July of 14.
July 14, right.
Okay. My hope is that, and I would feel that my colleagues share that also. I know there may be an idea to reduce bonded debt with some of this money.
Okay.
But I think the people in this city who have long experienced roadways that are in very, very difficult shape, I would suggest, and you can relay this to the administration, that a portion of that money be used to overlay some of the streets in each ward in the city, because I know that The councilors are looking with expectation to see things happen. I am myself, and I believe the residents of this city are. So my feeling is just to take lump sum like that and not do something that's noticeable to the residents of this city that they've long anticipated wouldn't be the right direction to go in as far as I'm concerned. So I just want to throw that out there so everybody's aware of, how I feel anyway, and I'm sure my colleagues on the council would like to see some positive things done in the city that have been neglected for years. Not through anyone's fault, just through a lack of money.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I understand that, and speaking, just repeating what the mayor said up here, when he made his presentation Tuesday night, was that, pardon me, was that when we passed the agreement, we didn't earmark any of these monies for specific purposes. And the reason for that is so that I imagine, well, the plan was that once we got the money, once Suffolk Downs actually received the license, then it'll be a joint effort to decide exactly how the money's being sent.
Yeah.
There's no real pre-plan, and we didn't want that. We didn't want a pre-plan of how this was going to be spent.
No, because
Things arise, there's items that arise, looking at the needs of the city and what had to be done in the city. It's best, and the policy was of the mayor's that everybody, get together, and he said that on Tuesday night, and decide exactly how this money is going to be spent. So it's going to be a cooperative effort.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that because I get people calling me every day, people up on Tree Valley Road, people up on True Street, Eastern Avenue,
Right.
and complaining about their streets, people down in the Point of Pines, the
Right.
same thing. And, we've done a lot of streets and a lot of sidewalks in the past, since I've been on the city council, I know, in my ward, and I'm sure we've done it in other wards too, but I think there are people that really feel as though they need to get those streets and sidewalks paved,
Right.
particularly the streets.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Council Powers. And this is getting a little bit off topic, but I'll just reiterate what I said the other night, which was that there's a ordinance on the books that says that 50% of gaming revenue has to go into the stabilization fund. I would hope that if that money does go into the stabilization fund, we look at spending that money in, and I think this is what the mayor alluded to, was spending the money on improvements that are going to last over a long period of time, not on operating costs and not building or baking that money into the budget, but rather thinking about how do we spend this money wisely and on projects that are going to be important to the future of the city. So I think it's just important to remember that we do have that ordinance on the books and that there's going to be an opportunity for us to really try to plan maybe and have a capital plan really that will be a wise investment for the city. George, did you want to say anything? Or?
Well, I do want to say this, is that those numbers didn't just happen. I mean, they were negotiated out that way because there's a plan behind those numbers in the sense that, especially the minimums, we didn't want to get caught in say, for example, if you didn't have a minimum, we don't have anything to tax. This is part of the problem. We didn't have anything to tax. So if you have something to tax, you don't have to worry about minimums because that property's there, you have a tax amount set to it, it increases with the tax amount, and that's fine. But we didn't have that. We only have a piece of land that's, I think, pays $325,000 a year. So other than that, the only thing we really couldn't, we had to make certain in the agreement that in order to plan in the future, we needed certain levels of payment coming in at certain times. And that's the way that agreement has been negotiated. So it just didn't happen that way. So that agreement was negotiated that way so that the city could plan, make a capital plan, a good capital plan, and then make certain that the city wasn't going to go bankrupt if things didn't happen the way planned. That's why they have the guarantees, and that's why those guarantees are so important.
Again, thank you, George, and that will conclude tonight's Ways and Means meeting. Thank you.